Hello students, in today's lecture we are going to continue with chapter 9 Force and Laws of Motion. Learning outcomes of today's lecture are: first, what measures inertia of a body? Second, state the law of inertia or Newton's first law of motion. Then we'll solve the box questions given on page number 118. That is NCERT textbook. Third question, define momentum of a body, give its SI and CGS units. And last, state Newton's second law of motion. Now let us coming to the first learning outcome. What measures inertia of a body? Students, we have studied about inertia in our previous lecture, that inertia is a tendency of a body or ability of a body to maintain its state of rest or of uniform motion along a straight line. Or we can also write inertia of a body is the ability of a body to resist a change in its state of rest or of uniform motion along a straight line. And we have seen that because of this inertia, a body which is at rest wants to remain at rest. A body which is in uniform motion along a straight line wants to remain in the same state of uniform motion, that is, wants to maintain the same speed and same direction of motion if no force is applied on it. Now you know students, if you have a small box in front of you and a big almirah, both are at rest and you want to give them movement, do you think it will be easier for you to move almirah or small box? Obviously small box. Similarly, if a ball is rolling towards you and a big stone is rolling towards you, so which thing you will find easier to stop, ball or a big stone? Ball, obviously. It means a ball has less inertia than stone because you can easily change the state of motion of a ball. Similarly, a small box compared to big almirah, you find it easier to change its state. So it means small box has less inertia and a big heavy almirah has more inertia. So what measures inertia of a body? We can say that a heavier the body is, more is its inertia, and its heaviness depends upon its weight and weight depends upon mass. So what measures inertia of a body? Mass of a body. So answer to this question is, mass of a body measures inertia of a body. If a body has more mass, it has more inertia. Okay. Now let us see the second learning outcome. State the law of inertia or Newton's first law of motion. Now we have studied in the previous lecture, Galileo has proved that if a body is at rest, it remains at rest. If a body is in uniform motion along a straight line, it will maintain the same state of motion along a straight line if no external force is applied on it. And to be more specific, we have to mention if no external unbalanced force is applied on it. Because we know that balanced force can only change the shape and size. It cannot change the velocity of a body. Okay. So, state the law of inertia or Newton's first law of motion. These are nothing but these are the results of Galileo Galilei's experiment. Okay, so they are based on that only. So, you can write Newton's first law of motion as: every body continues to remain in its state of rest or of uniform motion along a straight line unless an external unbalanced force is applied on it. Here you should not forget the word unbalanced. Okay. This law, which is given by Newton, is based on Galileo's demonstrations. So this law is also called as law of inertia as it is based on inertia. It speaks about inertia, that every body has inertia to maintain the same state. Okay. And this is given by Newton, so it is also called as Newton's first law of motion. Now let us see some examples which justify this Newton's first law of motion. Now consider this carom board. When you play carom board, when you have a pile of coins placed here, if using the striker you hit this, you strike this hard, with the striker, you hit the bottommost coin very hard. Then what will happen? It will move out quickly and this pile will stay there only. It will come down, it will fall down vertically like this. It means this pile will stay here only with this coin removed and this will come little down. Why? Due to inertia of rest. Okay. And similarly, when you consider this, here I have shown a glass. A glass is placed here and a cardboard, stiff cardboard is placed on the top of it. We have a 5 rupee coin placed here. Now, if you flick this card very hard like this with your finger, okay, if you flick it very hard with your finger and thumb, then what will happen? This card will move when you flick it very hard, okay, then the card will move away fast and the coin will fall down into the glass. Why? Because when we hit this cardboard, then this cardboard will fly away. But due to inertia of rest, the 5 rupee coin will tends to remain at rest and hence it will fall down into the glass. Okay, so these two examples prove that when the body is at rest here, they tend to remain in the same state of rest. Okay. I hope it is clear to you, and by Galileo's demonstration, the second part of the law can be imagined or can be proved. But in reality, we cannot have frictionless surface, so we cannot prove it here. Now let us see the questions given on page number 118 in your NCERT textbook. There are 4 questions. First question is, which of the following has more inertia? Which of the following has more inertia? A part is a rubber ball and a stone of same size. B part is a bicycle and a train. C part is a 5 rupees coin and a 1 rupee coin. Now the question is, there are 3 parts given, there are 3 pairs given. You have to just answer which has more inertia. You know that inertia is measured by mass of a body. So when we compare rubber ball and stone of same size, this stone obviously has more inertia. So in the first case, a stone of same size has more inertia. In the second case, we have bicycle and train, and all of us know that train has more mass than bicycle. So a train has more inertia. Third is a 5 rupee coin and a 1 rupee coin. We know that 1 rupee coin is lighter, a 5 rupees coin is heavier, and hence it has more mass and thus more inertia. So in all these 3 pairs, these have more inertia. Very simple question. Now let us read the second question. In the following example, see, I am reading the question, no need to look at this, just listen to me. This I have drawn just for your simple understanding. Listen to the question only. In the following example, try to identify the number of times the velocity of ball changes. What you have to say? The number of times the velocity of the ball changes. Now I'll read the example. A football player kicks a football to another player of his team. So I have drawn a diagram here because here I can explain you better by drawing the diagram. A football player kicks a football to another player of his team. So they both belong to the same team. This is the first player, this is the second player. Who kicks the football towards the goal? So the second player kicks the football towards the goal. And the goalkeeper, that goalkeeper of the team, opposite team, collects the ball. So he collects the ball first and then kicks it towards a player of his own team. Okay. Also identify the agent applying the force in each case. So here, now first player kicks the football towards the second player of his own team. The second player kicks the football towards the goal. The goalkeeper of the opposite team collects the ball and then he kicks it towards the player of his own team. You have to answer to 2 questions. 1. Identify the number of times the velocity of the ball changes. Okay, and the force and who applies, identify the agent applying the force in each case. Okay, now see here, when the first player kicks the football, so this first player and his kick, that is the agent which is applying the force, and the velocity of the ball changes. Okay, whether it was at rest or they came to here and then it came to him and then he kicked, that doesn't matter. So first time, now the velocity of the ball changes in our example, and the agent who applies the force is this first player or his kick. Then the second player kicks it towards the ball. So second player then is the agent who is applying the force on the ball, on the football, and now the velocity of the ball changes second time. Now the goalkeeper will collect the ball. It means collect the ball means he will catch the ball, he will stop the ball. So again, when the goalkeeper collects the ball, the velocity of the ball changes. Third time, here first time, second time, third time when he collects the football. Okay, and now the agent who is applying force is the goalkeeper. And then the goalkeeper kicks the football towards his own team player. So now again the football, when he kicks it towards this person of his team, then again he is changing the velocity of the football. Fourth time now it is changed, and again the agent who is applying force is goalkeeper. So first agent who applies force is this first player, then second player, third time goalkeeper when he collects it, fourth time again goalkeeper when he kicks it. How many times velocity changes? 4 times. 1, 2, when he collects third time, and when he kicks fourth time. So hope you have understood this, that the velocity of the ball changes 4 times, and you can identify the 4 agents who are responsible for this change in velocity, who had applied force to change this velocity. Now I'll read the third question. Explain why some of the leaves may get detached from a tree if we vigorously shake its branch. Again, this is based on Newton's first law of motion only, that is inertia only. When we vigorously shake the branch of a tree will come into motion. Okay, branches will come into motion, and leaves, some of the leaves may tend to remain at rest due to inertia of rest, and then due to gravity. So in doing so, they get separated from the branch and then they fall down due to gravity. So it is basically, you have to write that when we move the branch comes into motion. Some of the leaves tends to remain at rest due to inertia of rest. So they get separated from the branch and finally they fall down due to gravity. Last question on this page is, why do you fall in the forward direction when a moving bus brakes to a stop and falls backward when it accelerates from rest? Students, this I have discussed in the previous lecture, that when we are sitting in a moving bus and brakes are applied, then what happens? Our feet in contact with the bus stops, but upper part of the body tends to maintain the same state of uniform motion in the same direction. So the upper part of the body moves in the forward direction, or we get a forward jerk. And suppose if we are standing in a bus, okay, which is at rest, and the bus suddenly accelerates, okay, it means the person starts a bus and accelerates, gives it very high speed. Then what will happen? Then you will fall in the backward direction, or you will get a jerk in the backward direction, because your feet in contact with the platform of the bus, they come into motion when the bus is accelerated, but upper part of the body tends to remain at rest due to inertia of rest. So you get a backward jerk, or your body fall backwards. Okay? So I hope answers to these 4 questions are clear to you. Now let us try to achieve the second last outcome, that is momentum. You should know how to define the momentum of a body, and then you should be able to give its SI and CGS units. It means momentum will be a physical quantity. It is a physical quantity. Now let us try to understand this first. Now whenever any body is moving, so its effect or impact depends upon two things. Let us see which are they. Now here, pay attention here. Here we have a cricket ball and I have shown a rubber ball. Two balls I have shown. Let us say rubber ball, somebody hits this person with this rubber ball. Okay? And let us say that rubber ball, when it strikes him, it is having some velocity v. Now next time, imagine that a cricket ball is thrown towards the person and now it hits the person with the same velocity. So two cases, different cases we are imagining. A rubber ball thrown towards a person hitting with some velocity, and then cricket ball we are imagining which is thrown towards a person, maybe a different person, okay, with the same velocity, okay, with which the rubber ball was thrown. Don't imagine the person to be same, because if we throw cricket ball first, maybe he will not be in a condition to stand, okay. So just don't take it seriously that the same person is there. Now, what we have considered in this case, that velocity with which the two balls hit the person be equal. So, in which case do you think the person will get more injured? Will the effect or impact of the two balls be same? Obviously no. A rubber ball, when it hits, maybe the person will get little bit hurt, not more. But the cricket ball can cause huge damage to the person. You know that. So, cricket ball and rubber ball, we have considered that they hit the person with the same velocity. But impact in two examples are different. Why? Because cricket ball, you can easily guess, cricket ball has more mass. It is heavier than rubber ball. So, its weight is more and its mass is more. So, cricket ball's effect or impact will be more. We have kept here velocity of the two balls constant when they hit the person. Okay? Now consider the second example where I have shown a gun and a bullet. Okay? Suppose the person shoots at that person with this bullet. Okay? And bullet is shot from a gun. So then obviously what will happen? You can imagine if the person is having good aim. Okay? If he knows how to use his gun very well. Secondly, if suppose same bullet is there, same bullet means a similar bullet is there, similar means it has same mass. So similar bullet, if someone who doesn't have gun throws it towards that person, do you think he will die or he will get hurt? No, not at all. So in this case, what is the difference? Here the difference, velocity was constant, but the mass of the two balls were different and hence the impact was different. In this case, the two bullets that we have considered, one shot from the gun and one thrown with the hand, they have the same mass, but the impact will be different. Impact will be more in the first case, where the bullet strikes. Why the impact is different? Masses are same. When the two bullets have the same mass, why the impact is different? Yes, because this bullet, which is shot from a gun, will hit the person with very high velocity. And this bullet, when we throw it with hand, it cannot gain that velocity. It will not hit the person with that high velocity. So in this case, the difference is in the velocity with which the bullets strike the person. In this case, the velocity is constant, but it is a difference in mass which will cause the difference in impact. So from these two, examples, we can accept that impact of a moving object depends upon two things, mass as well as velocity. It does not, we cannot say it only depends upon mass. It depends upon mass also, but at the same time it depends upon velocity also. So impact of a moving object depends upon two things, mass and velocity, and hence now we are going to see the definition of momentum. So now momentum of a body can be defined as the product of its mass and velocity. As we have just seen that impact of a moving body depends upon two factors, mass and velocity. So just taking the product of these two, we get momentum of a body. This is the quantitative definition of momentum. That is definition which gives its formula. Momentum of a body is defined as a product of its mass and velocity. So product means multiplication. Mass m into velocity v of a body gives us its momentum. Momentum is represented by small letter p. Okay. Now there is one more definition of momentum which is qualitative definition. I'll just mention it. You can remember it, but no need to write that definition whenever asked. Normally when we are asked to define, we give this definition. Qualitative definition of momentum is amount of motion possessed by a body is called as its momentum. So this is the qualitative definition. Amount of motion possessed by a body is called as its momentum. Quantitative definition is momentum of a body is defined as a product of its mass and velocity. And momentum is denoted by small letter p is equal to mv. Now students, as velocity is a vector quantity, mass is scalar, but velocity is a vector quantity, so momentum is also a vector quantity. And it has the same direction as that of velocity. So direction of momentum and velocity of a body are same and both are vectors. What is the SI unit of momentum? See the formula. Always for the unit you should see the formula. Mass, SI unit is kg. Velocity, meter per second. So SI unit of momentum is kg meter per second. CGS unit of momentum is mass, gram, velocity, centimeter per second. So CGS unit of momentum will be gram centimeter per second. Okay, instead of per you can just write meter, then leave some space second and -1 to the power -1, but this is a better way to write when we have only one unit in the denominator. Okay, now I hope this is clear to you. You just have to remember the definition, its units, and that it is a vector quantity. Now next, let us try to proceed to the Newton's second law of motion. Now consider that you have a body whose mass is m, and let us say it is moving with some initial velocity u on a frictionless surface. Okay, and if F force is applied on it, what will happen? Its velocity will change. Let us say the velocity changes to v. So a body having mass m moving with velocity u, when force F is applied on it, its velocity changes to v. Okay, so momentum will also change. What is the initial momentum? M into velocity. But what is initial velocity? U. So m into u is the initial momentum. Final momentum, when the force is applied, it is m into v. So momentum changes. What is the change in momentum? Final momentum minus initial momentum. mv minus mu. Now if I ask you, this change in momentum of a body depends upon which factors? Students generally give only one answer, force applied. Because more is the force applied, more will be the change in velocity, more will be the change in momentum. Okay, so this answer is right, that change in momentum is directly proportional to force applied. But whenever I have asked this in class, students are never able to give me the second factor on which this change in momentum depends. Change in momentum will also depend upon time for which the force is applied. I have intentionally not mentioned time here, but in the class when I ask, students never give this answer. So you should know that this change in momentum will depend upon the force applied and also time for which the force is applied. If more is the force applied, more will be the change in momentum. Or if force is applied for more time, then more will be the change in momentum. Hence, change in momentum is directly proportional to force applied and also it is directly proportional to time for which the force is applied. So, if I write here mv minus mu is proportional to t and combine the two, then I can write mv minus mu, that is change in momentum, is proportional to F into t. I can write this. It is proportional to force and product of force and time. Just take this time here. So what do I get? mv minus mu upon T is proportional to F. Students, if I ask you, what is this? You remember V minus U is change in velocity and V minus U upon time is rate of change of velocity. V minus U is change in velocity and V minus U upon time, where T is at time during which the velocity changes, is rate of change of velocity, which we call it as acceleration. So similarly here, this is change in momentum and this is change in momentum divided by time during which this change has taken place. So this is rate of change of momentum. So now we can easily, there is no need to write these steps. You can easily accept this part and you accept this relation, and now you can easily state Newton's second law of motion. So what is Newton's second law of motion? The rate of change of momentum of a body is directly proportional to the force applied and it takes place in the direction of the force applied. This second part I'll try to explain you later on, because you will not understand it now. You will understand when we will do one derivation after this. So at least listen to the statement properly. The rate of change of momentum of a body is directly proportional to the force applied and it takes place in the direction of the force applied. This is Newton's second law of motion. So this is how you can write Newton's second law of motion. The rate of change of momentum of a body is directly proportional to the force applied and it takes place in the direction of the force applied. Mathematically, we can write it this way. So I hope you have understood today what is Newton's. You can state Newton's first law of motion, which is also called as law of inertia. You can state Newton's second law of motion. You can define momentum and give its SI and CGS units. So we'll continue with this Newton's second law of motion further in the next video. Hope you have enjoyed this. Thank you, students.